A safe space for terrible things. So, coming up first to the stage, an amazing writer, a gentleman who I had the opportunity to work with on a book last year, and certainly am looking forward to working with more in the future. Mr. Dan B. Fierce, please come to the stage, sir, and share your words.
Hi, thanks for having me. Uh, do I just go right into this? This is my first time. I suppose I do.
Go, sir, go.
All right. Sorry about that. I'm going to read something from a work in progress. This is still in draft form, so it might get more gory. It might get less gory. I'm not sure. This is from an upcoming project called Amontillado. A familiar squeak erupted from the corner. Once more, shadows came to life. My visitor brought friends. Each skittering nail raised hairs. Each timid chitter wrought a palpitation in my chest. They flooded from the darkness. Hunched figures with snake-like tails scampered about. Can I defend myself now? My heart drummed in my chest, skipping a beat as one of the vermin perched atop my shoe. Was that the same one I kicked? Surely such beings don't have memories. My answer came as a nip on my ankle. Screaming, I attempted to shake the demon loose, but my legs gave again. It gnawed until I swatted at it in a flourish. Vile creature! I made an attempt to grab the animal, but the acrid environment proved it a slippery task. More of the horrid things surrounded my foot. My eyes grew wide as I frantically attempted to wave them away. Unperturbed, they began to bite and chew, first at the cloth of my footwear and then at the flesh beneath. One in particular took a liking to the bells of my toes, nibbling the decorations free to ferret away in its nest. Sharp teeth penetrated me faster than I could slap them away. Blood lubricated my grip and the ground. As one of the aberrations sliced through my tendon, I collapsed, unable to stand. They climbed me, swarming my body, choosing and chewing. Leave, I pled to them weakly. Leave me be. Is my situation not dire enough? Begone, pests. One of the rats squeaked in pain as it trotted over the torch Montresor plunged into my chamber before sealing it. The thing barely gave off a glow now, but there still must have been enough fire within it for the beast to recoil like that. I stretched as far as I could with the devils devouring me where I was. My fingers fumbled at the torch, trying to roll it closer to get it within grasp. The horrors continued to devour bits of me as I struggled, tearing, shredding. Finally, I gained a tenuous grip on the tool. Swinging wildly at first, I batted one of my assailants away. The thud of its plump body gave me a bit of confidence in my next attacks. My offensive continued until all of the beasts had fled, yelling like madmen all the while. The damage had been done. I bled from countless gaping wounds, unable to stand upright. That sudden burst of survival instinct may have been my last. I panted, the air singeing my lungs, each drawn breath shorter, heavier than the one before. Muscles weakened as my life drained onto the floor with each beat of my heart. Drowsiness set in. Gravity claimed me as best it could with my restraints. The room became blacker still. The quiet consumed me in ways that the rodents couldn't. Soon, it was all I could hear, all I could see. So tired. Just a quick nap. That's what I've got.
Excellent, excellent, sir. Outstanding.
Thank you.
Dan, it was a pleasure to work with you on Father Figure, man. That book is great. I've seen some wonderful reviews for it. How's it making its way in the world?
Slowly, but independent authors. We don't have the PR team that Stephen King and Dean Koontz have. So
We're working on it, though. We're putting some great stuff together here, so you guys can benefit. Where can we find you online, Dan?
you can find me online on www.danbfiercebooks.com or
And good.
or www.fiercephantoms.com. That's Phantoms, Phantoms.
Awesome. And you'll be hitting the convention scene this year a little bit, doing some shows?
A little bit. I had to make an unfortunate decision and back out of StokerCon for this year, but
all right. Where can we find you?
I'm all around. I'll be at the Crypticon in Kansas City.
Nice. Very nice.
And that, I believe, is in July.
Right on.
And I'll also be at Scares That Care 4 in St. Louis in October, I believe.
Yes, sir. And I will see you there because we will be there representing for Psychotoxin and for the American Horrors Network. We'll be doing some interviews, some TV stuff. It's going to be a great time. So I definitely look forward to finally meeting you in person. I've actually never met any of the writers that I work with. So this year I'm going to be meeting a lot of folks. I'm very excited. Dan, thank you so much for your time. And we will see you in the very near future, my friend.
Thank you for having me.
Have a great night. All right, folks, we're going to take a quick commercial break. We will be right back. This is a ad for a book that was just recently released by Psychotoxin. The person who made the ad, she doesn't even know that I'm about to air it for the first time, but check this out. The idea started getting kicked around the office here that we ought to go back and show a little reverence to the roots that were Goosebumps, especially for the younger folks at home. That book is now available on Amazon in ebook and in paperback format, so be sure to check that out. Coming up to the stage next is an absolutely delightful human being, an amazingly talented writer, amazingly hardworking woman. She has the great displeasure of working as my personal assistant, which I know is a gigantic pain in the ass. But Carrie Dorsch, please come to the stage and share your words with us.
Hey, Carrie Dorsch here. So I will be reading a story that me and Brandon Wills have worked together called Burnt Timbers. I hope you enjoy it. I became obsessed with uncovering the truth, peering through my curtains and watching his every move. The more I observed, the more convinced I became that Wilson was not just an ordinary man. He was a predator, preying on the innocent, leaving a trail of slaughter in his wake. Wilson was a fucking monster. Because how else do you explain me seeing him unloading a toolbox and a bag of trash bags from his car? Or seeing him coming home late at night with a different girl every week? Don't even get me started on the midnight trash can visits. I decided to begin the stalking, the fine art of obnoxiously invading someone's life without their consent. I don't feel bad because he was killing people without their consent, so it was a fair game in my mind. Stalking is truly a pastime that genuinely separates the passionate from the lazy. Who needs a healthy sense of boundaries when you can obsessively follow someone's every move? Especially when you know you're right in doing it. Why bother making a connection that may become a red flag for him when you can just become an expert in surveillance? Plus, tracking someone's online presence, daily routines, and favorite hangout spots, all from the comfort of your own darkened room, is way better than trying to chat with him personally in the hot sun and sweating buckets. It's almost applaudable how I dedicated myself to peering into the life of Wilson. Truly, it was a masterpiece in jungling my social awkwardness and all the legal implications if I was to be found out. The first time I stalked him, I followed him to his place of employment. He worked at the only bank in Spruce Pine, the United Community Bank. There are 10 other banks nearby, but only one in Spruce Pine. Trust me, I looked. His job seemed ordinary enough. Every morning at 6:50 a.m., he'd scan his badge at the door, scan his badge to a private office, and then he'd make sure his blinds were closed and the curtains were drawn. That part pissed me off. I was dying to see what this bastard was doing behind closed doors. I found it hard to believe he was just doing his tasks. I could see him walking around the rest of the building where he had to, chatting with his coworkers, greeting customers, doing the same old glad hand bullshit that probably got him in the job in the first place. It was all eerie stuff from my own boss. Wilson would stay in the building until after sunset. He was always the last person to leave the premises. He'd hop into his SUV, stop by his favorite restaurant, order the same meal, go home for the evening. This man lived by routine. He seemed to thrive on it. With social media, a barren landscape. Tagged photos and posts with a post of his own every once a month. He was a relative ghost among his friends. This part always annoyed me the most. I decided to call off work to snoop inside of the home. One day, yes, sir, I coughed. I can't make it in today. I think I got the COVID. I'll get tested later. Yeah. But anywho, Wilson didn't appear to have home surveillance, but I tried the back door in case he had a hidden doorbell camera. When I was in the middle school, friends showed me how to pick a lock after my parents had neglected to leave a key at home after school. It's actually simpler than one might think. Anywho, the back door lock snapped to life, and the door slowly squeaked open. I peered around the corner, making sure Wilsey didn't have any yappy dog somewhere that I hadn't learned about yet, but the coast was clear. The kitchen was tidy, fairly vacant, something you'd expect from a bachelor. It had a small table, two chairs in the middle. Everything was immaculate, well taken care of. Something not typical of a bachelor. Next, I made my way into the connecting hallway, lined with an old family portraits and ugly faded white wallpaper that must have been originally placed in the 70s. The carpet was a thick shag that I believe was originally green, but now faded to almost a shade of gray. The facade made my inner artist cringe. The hallway went straight to a foyer, but in the right was the living room. In the left was a door leading to the basement and staircase that would take you to the second floor. I stopped debating myself which I would rather go to first, and a mental dice roll told me to check upstairs. My mind was pregnant with obscene ideas of what may lie in the basement, and if they were true, then I'd rather check the rest of the house first. Upstairs, two bedrooms, full bath, linen closet. Peek into the bathroom, revealed marvelous white tile with a garden tub in the back and recently melted candles lighting the edges. That was probably to lure his last victim into the sense of relaxation before he slit their fucking throat. The candlelight glitting off the sparkling red of their recently spilled blood. Unfortunately, I found no evidence of blood in the tub. A quick lick of the lining also proved that. One bedroom was obviously a guest room that hadn't been used in a while. It was maintained by a lacked anything interesting, so I proceeded to Wilson's chamber of horrors, I had no doubt. And inside the room was totally blacked out. The one window had been painted over in several coats of very dark black. His bed wasn't made, and the cover was still pulled aside where he had lied the night before. Bondage equipment was also assembled to the headboard and footboard. Chains connected to leather-bound restraints that would force one to be spread eagle. I sniffed the spot and inhaled his aroma, inhaling every breath that with a strangely lustful exhilaration my body became strangely aroused at this. I stripped myself, laid on the spot, and made a quick masturbation session, relieving myself where he might have the night before. I had to get in his head, after all, and if I really wanted to be able to prove that what I knew was true, well, I thought also about how he would think. It made sense. How he might have tied them up, gagged them, and had his way with them. I've never had BDSM kink, but after this, one just might find one out. After this was over, I redressed and nosed around the room. I found a dresser full of sex toys, at least one of them of each variety that I could even imagine. As I rummaged about his closet, I found a box of stashed away top shelf, several dozen Polaroid photos of women in various stages of undress and bondage. Some of these were taken selfie style, with them looking toward the camera in gagged horror, their face blank with expression, a lion in the killing frenzy. His penis would be fully erect in these photos, showing its girthy self and the terrified look on the women. Perhaps they were enjoying it, and it was all in my imagination. Perhaps he ran an online site where he sold these types of things for an ultra kink work. Perhaps I could join one day. No, Wilson is a fucking psychopath, and I had to prove it. If I killed him and I had to prove why I had to do it, he was a monster, and I had to kill him. My senses began going on again like Spider-Man, and I found myself oddly aroused again as I left the room and went up downstairs into the basement. The basement looked like something out of a 90s sitcom show. The floors were clean, walls covered in tool-covered corkboards. There was no doubt that they're his murder instruments of choice. Sick bastard was probably a sadistic nickname for himself, like the Tool Man, or something else narcissistic. The stairs leading down there were weak and creaked with each step I took. I knew he probably had them made the way that so he could hear one of the girls if they ever tried to leave. I knew he had to be morbid, but seeing all these tools and witnesses in his chamber upstairs, I finally knew how deranged he really was. It made me nauseated to think someone would be this insane. Once I took the last step and touched my foot to the floor, I looked around diligently. As any amateur television trained investigator, I noticed he had a stack of red paint cans sitting in one corner. It was easy to deduce that they were used to store the blood. Oh my, I thought this was much worse than I could have imagined. I felt strangely aroused by the conclusion. Not only could he be a killer, but probably he was a cannibal as well. Just look, there was a grill in the back of the basement. Oh God, I could see it now. Pictures birthed in my mind of how he tortured these young women and killed them, cooking their flesh and butchered their meat sizzling on a grill to fill the air with their sickly sweet aroma. This man is a fucking monster. I have to stop him. I have to. And after another quick masturbation session, I found a small freezer, which I suspected contained something would give me no desire to open it, yet I knew there had to be body parts. He probably had enough meat to make Dahmer envious, even more than a typical animal butcher. I couldn't stomach the thought. I fell to my knees. I've retched for several moments. It was better to walk by without opening it. I saw the light switch on the back wall and stepped closer to turn the lights on when I heard, "What the fuck are you doing in my house?" he shouted. "I'm stopping you from hurting anyone else, you sick fuck," I yelled back. He blocked my way from his massive frame, just like I envisioned he had many times with those poor girls I saw enter his house. He lunged, but I was a little quicker than him. I managed to pass him, but didn't want to leave the basement. Oh no, I wanted him down here with me. I had him right where I wanted him. Tonight was the night. Tonight, he was going to die just like all those women he killed down here into his fucking death chamber. I would avenge those girls and expose him as the monster. We wrestled for a few seconds, but I outmaneuvered Wilson, and I had trained for this moment for months. I gained control very quickly and gave him a solid, hard hammer fist to the temple. My body had become aroused again, but I had to ignore these sensations. I had no time to masturbate. Wilson seemed to weigh a ton as I attempted to lift him on his torture table. I noticed red speckles dotting the counter. Anyone who saw this would probably heard the tale about how it was spilled paint, but I knew the truth. I knew the truth! And I saw he had zip ties sitting in the bag of the bench, so I used those to tie his limbs, just like he probably fucking tied those girls. And my eyes caught sight of the wood burner. Oh, my eyes darted from the wood burner to his bulged jeans. Even if he was a sick bastard, I had to admit, he was still packing a mule cock. And then shivers ran down my back as I thought of how many of those young girls were ripped and left gaping by that monster cock, ruined by anyone else they were lucky enough to still be alive. I knew what I was going to do. It would be symbolic, and it would truly avenge those girls. I started jerking his belt buckle and unbuttoning his pants, and his cock flopped out like a limp arm and smacked onto his thigh with a meaty thud. And his balls seemed to be too big for his sack. The skin was swollen to accommodate such a huge package of nuts. He had recently shaved, and the tiny black hairs growing added a contrast to his size, already monstrous, and made even bigger by the sudden surrounding of no bush. The head, a reddish purple, just a little girthier than the shaft, which had no doubt was a challenge for the women. I visualized playing with his penis until it became completely erect. How big it must have been at the maximum. Then I slipped it into my savoring mouth, savoring each inch of the massive thing. It's not like I was some jealous lover or something. I didn't fantasize about the guy. Come on. I had no fucking time for this. I'm not crazy or anything. I needed to focus on the torture. I needed to know what it felt like to be stretched and blood leaking from down his ass crack. I took his meat in my hand and I picked up the wood burner with the other. I was about to brand his baloney pony so it would no longer travel past the pasture. I wasn't a complete animal, so I hawked up a decent loogie and spit on the wood burner's tip. I held his sock sausage tighter and started to slide the rod down his urethra. At first there was the resistance, but I applied force to widen the small flesh tube to accept this tool of terror. I saw tiny threads spread from the tip of the head and the skin break open and stretch, and then Wilson began to scream. That's when I switched on this device. Wilson cried out to the very heavens that had witnessed his atrocity behavior, and the stench of burning flesh filled the air in my nostrils as I pushed back the rod deeper into a stiffening cock, and I felt back to the urge of vomit, but the smell, I knew I had to carry on. He jerked and thrashed about the cable, the zip ties held tightly to dig deep into his skin. Streams of blood flowed from each limb as he struggled against the restraints. The skin blistered and began to bubble like a candle wax. A rod grew hotter by the second, my hand going warm from the radiating heat of the tool, blood going all over, leaking like a garden hose. I pushed it harder into him. His dick looked like a burning wick of a candle, and the skin melted and oozed away. Wilson screamed to the point of crackling his voice. His throat veins bulged just like a stiff, suffering cock, and I pulled my full weight, and the rod sank deeper into his body, probably as deep as his bladder, and his tiny black pubid hair started to sizzle and burn away. Sparks flew out from his trimmed bush, landing on my bare arm. I cried out in pain. His skin was blistering and peeling as he cried out in unbearable agony, and his sack started to split open from the heat, much like a sack of marbles. My eyes were drawn to the sight of one testicle sleeping out of the flesh sack and unraveling down his hip. The ball vein strung out along his side and unrolled down the table. I kicked the testicle out of my way to avoid getting his testicle fluids on my shoes. I just got these last week. And that is an excerpt of Burnt Timbers.
Oh boy. Yeah. All right then. See, folks, what can I say to that? Carrie, where can we find you? And
You
where
can
should
find
we
me on
hide?
Facebook. I like to keep it simple. That's the only social media. You can find me on Psychotoxin, Unveiling Nightmares. I'm pretty easy to find. Keep on the lookout. Got lots of things going on.
All righty.
So-
Well, always a pleasure. Always a pleasure. We will talk soon. We're going to take a quick commercial break. We'll be right back. And we are back. Our next reader is new to our stage. He is here for the first time with us. I don't envy him the position that he finds himself in after following that. But John Collins, come to the stage, sir, and blow us away.
Wow. Okay. Hi. I'm reading from my story, Matters of the Heart. Hope you like it. Why are you acting so cold? The words escaped my lips before I even knew they were formed. Of course you're angry. I would be too if the roles were reversed. Please, believe me when I say it. The others meant nothing to me. They were harmless little flings. No feeling, no passion. Not like what we have. They're nothing like you. The moment I saw you, I knew I lost my heart. The slight smile on your lips quickened my pulse. My body throbbed with a need to hold you, to kiss those perfect pink lips so softly. I could feel your heart race as we embraced. My hands on your slender hips curving into the small of your back. My nerves shuddered with anticipation for the moment when you'd finally open yourself up to me. With a sweet slowness, I explored you completely, looking for all your hidden secrets, all your passions, your desires. My fingers glide over the soft folds, sparking a static charge from your fine, tiny hairs. A soft cry escapes your lips as they encourage my barely controlled need to the point of a full frenzy. Then suddenly, release. While in our afterglow, I realized you needed the truth. You had to hear the truth, my truth. Still gasping, I confessed about the others. The passionless tryst I engaged in, always looking for that lifelong love that I so desperately wanted. Always searching for that one person who would complete me, searching for you. And now, coldness. I see the way you've avoided my eyes since my confession, refusing to even acknowledge my presence as I plead for your forgiveness and your understanding. The gap between us widening, inch by agonizing inch, growing further apart by the second. My panic is just starting to set in. Fine. The realization hits me like a hammer to the temple. Maybe you are like all the others, so giving on the surface, but underneath a voracious parasite, playing innocent while all the while taking everything, all that I can offer. But that wasn't enough, was it? Well, guess what, bitch? I am your dead end, your final mistake, because I can take as much as you can dish out. If I can't have you, then I'll take something. A memento to mark this moment, a keepsake to remind me of our love, short as it was. Your cold heart will do. I already had the glass box waiting to be placed along the others. The blade gleams in the cold, bright light, reflecting the bitch beauty that radiates from you. Yeah, keep your eyes closed. You don't want to see this. Pointing the tip of the blade into the stitch already just above the pubis. I angle the blade up. Pressure builds up behind my balls, the ache making my hands tremble. I love you. It comes out in a whisper, floating up into my face on a breeze filled with the stink of rotted meat. Delicious. My mouth waters. Your eyes are turned towards me. I gasp. Liquid warmth spreads over me. I drop the scalpel to the floor. A door opened. The funeral director stands there with a box in his arms, his eyes set in the glare. I look back down. Your eyes are closed. The first viewing's at 7. Her parents requested that she be wearing this. He set down the box on an adjoining countertop, opening it to reveal a dark blue prom dress. She'll be ready, right? The steel in his voice told me it wasn't a question. He stepped forward, looking down at you. His eyes tracked from the scalpel to my wet crotch, then up to me. Contempt wormed in through his eyes. Nice job with the skull reconstruction. Ready at 7, right? Yes. My voice is dry and cracking. The sound of dead leaves underfoot. Slowly, I slide the trocar out of your abdomen. Formaldehyde lightly splatters your belly. I let out a soft moan. The director's glare is venomous. Have her ready. If the door weren't on a piston, it would have slammed on his exit. Our time was short. I glanced at the clock. Still enough time to spend with my love. And that's it.
All right, John, thank you very much, sir. Love it. Creepy. Up the spine kind of creepy. Fucking love it, sir. Where can we find you online, my friend?
Facebook at John P. Collins Jr. And from there, you can find all the other stuff. There is a small Amazon page, but there's really not a lot there yet.
All right. Well, be sure to follow us at Psychotoxin, my friend. We've always got stuff happening. Love your work. Would like to talk more about it in the future with you.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right. Have a great night. Folks, we're going to go to a commercial. We will be right back.
Next time on NP Armageddon, we are your source for full coverage of the presidential debate, where the candidates will make their cases to the people. Who should rule Los Angeles? Is it disgraced former president Truby Skullgore?
Actually, I think that's a great idea.
Political activist turned terrorist Hart Fisher?
When do we start? I'll throw a party. I'll get a band. We'll have a keg.
Or elderly statesman Old Man Stimson?
You young punks with your narcotics and your hope for the future. I say.
Moderated by NP Armageddon's own Brian Garcia McMillan Keithley.
Well, ain't this just a kick in the head?
The marketplace of ideas is running low on inventory, and democracy is on back order.
Featuring the voice talents of Harlan Ellison, LeJean, Hart D. Fisher, Barbara Goodson, Heath Corson, Amy Dallin, Tay Zonday, and many, many others.
Hell yeah! Can you dig it?
All this and more in NP Armageddon Episode 10, The Presidential Debate.
Well, I don't know about you, but I can in fact dig it. We are coming back, and coming to the stage next is the Mad Professor of Psychotoxin. Rocky Colavito is an amazing writer. He is a wrestling fan after my own heart. He is the editor of the Psychotoxin Cryptid imprint. The new book will be coming out soon, very soon in April, and that will be Smack Squatch. Rocky, come to the stage, sir, and share with us your words.
How y'all doing? This is in honor of it being Splatterpunk night. It's a section from something that Alex Riley is looking at right now, and it's called Splattered Punks. 1 second, I got to set my timer. This is set at a concert where things are about to go seriously sideways. A spotlight suddenly turns on, and we finally see the band members of The Exorcist outtakes. Loud screams and a backward rush envelop us and draw us along. You ever see that old flick where the guy has all those nails driven into his head? What we saw was worse. Hundreds of staples, glowing red hot, permeating the lead druid's face. His eyes blaze, eyelids held back by the same staples. In the light, we can see that his hands are similarly marked. His brethren bear mutilations and obscene piercings as well. One woman has a massive fish hooks through both of her lips and all along the top of her ample breasts. Another is missing all the skin on one diagonal half of his face. His tongue has a line of carpet tacks driven through it. 4 others with a catalog of horrific creativity marking their faces survey the audience with disdain. The one at the tip of the arrow points into the audience, his eyes locking on a tall, well-built punk. He points and the punk moves forward, trying to struggle but not succeeding. The crowd gives him space as he moves toward the stage. He stops and faces Stapleface. Without warning, Stapleface repositions his hand and grotesquely places 2 fingers in an exaggerated split. The punk screams as his body drops downward. I hear his leather pants rip and see that he's gone commando as his body hits its limit. Another druid moves next to Stapleface and raises both hands, beckoning. 2 more audience members move forward, one on each side of the guy trying to do a split. The second druid turns his palms down and drops them. The punks each grab a shoulder of the screaming guy and push downwards, hard. The guy on the receiving end screams in a falsetto as his crotch hammers into the floor, erupting blood from his crushed scrotum and ripped perineum. Once he's flattened out, he topples backwards, moaning loudly. Another druid aligns herself with the leader. She and the one who forced the split make a motion like they are picking up something and then yanking. The punks who forced him down each grab a leg. They slowly start pushing them upwards towards his ears. They suddenly push violently. One leg completely detaches and tears off his body, drenching several people with blood. The other leg dislocates. We can hear the crack, and the other punk forces it behind the now dead guy's head. Staplehead smiles, and he applauds. So does the audience. Goth Chick is shaking with revulsion. She tries to turn away, but she's not fast enough. She vomits up the beer that she's had all over me, missing my face but sloshing down my cleavage. I pay this little mind because something else is happening. 2 more druids move forward. The leader points to another person. This time a really tiny woman with really big breasts. She's yanked forward and forced flat on the floor. The other 2 druids select 2 more subjects and draw them forward. One grabs the group's legs, the other her arms. They raise her off the floor. The 2 druids beside their leader make motions like wringing out a wash rag. I do not want to see this, but it's a train wreck. Two guys holding her limbs start twisting her body in opposing directions, yanking and yanking harder as they go. The poor girl screams and struggles, but that does her no good. Her spine snaps with an audible crack, her eyes roll back in her head, and she becomes dead weight. They don't stop. The twisting continues, and I see the skin at her waist start to tear, gradually at first, but eventually widening until her trunk ruptures and blood and viscera spew. Her body finally rips in two. Each punk uses their half to drench the audience members near them. Goth chick takes a full gout in the chest. Expect by now that people would be trying to run for the exits, but it seems like Goth chick and I are the only ones who can move without permission from the master manipulators on stage. Their leader's eyes scan the audience. They fix on Blowhole. Blowhole moves forward into a small knot of people, including Dooley and Loka, who give him some room. He's blubbering and crying for his mama, his hands interlace and pleading. Once again, the druid leader seems to smile. He slowly brings his hands together, overlaps them, and squeezes. Blowhole's eyes bulge and his body seems to compress in on itself, forming itself into a grotesque approximation of a wasp's waist. The force of the compression ruptures his intestines, which spew forth from his anus, spewing backwards and downwards from his pants. It's raining down on those in the knot. His face bloats even more, and blood starts to drip from his nose and ears. He turns his head toward Loka, and his eyes pop, ichor hitting Loka full in the face. It's almost merciful when Blowhole's head explodes, brains and bones splattering everyone near him. We lock eyes, and that's when the rest of the lights go on and the screaming starts. It's pandemonium as people try to run in different directions. The druids smile at this craziness. One cups his hands and makes a motion like he's scooping up a bunch of something. A mixed group to the side of us is lifted off the floor and struggle in a heap like crabs in a barrel. The druid slowly pushes the sides of the cup together, moving his hands like he is forming a ball. The group is smushed together. Their cries smother each other. The druid then makes a motion like he is bouncing this ball. The group is slammed into the floor, spewing blood, then rises again. The druid does this 3 more times and then tires of it. He clenches his hand into a fist. The ball of punks explodes and showers us with an assortment of bodily fluids, everything from brains to shit. Goth chick and I are soaked, hair and faces dripping with gore. I grab her hand and tried to run. The exit is slammed with people trying to get out. The ones toward the end are grabbed by invisible hands and either flung against the walls or slammed against each other. The sound of breaking bones and screams of pain intermingle in a demented soundtrack. I'll be damned if I don't catch a glimpse of one of the druids turning on an old school reel-to-reel tape. These fuckers are recording this. We circle away from the exit, barely avoiding the flying body of a girl who's been folded in such a way that her head is stuck up her pussy. She seems to be alive because we can see the diminishing struggles. Her body skids along the floor, coming up against the front of the merch table. All of Goth Chick's friends are hanging in midair, naked from the waist down. They are flown about the room, shitting endlessly on the audience. A guy and a girl dressed alike in togas, are held with their heads back, mouth open, receiving the offering. We watch in horror as her friends are suddenly daisy-chained, stopping the rain of shit, but adding new cries as they sodomize each other and switch to oral sex of feces-caked penises. Goth Chick turns away in horror. I have my own horror to deal with. Dooley is elbow deep into Loka's asshole, waving her around like a pom-pom. Loka screams and struggles. Her eyes meet mine, and I can see her pleading for me to save her. I look away. There's nothing I can do. Dooley tires of waving her around and starts slamming her upper body against the side of the stage. 5 slams on the edge completely demolish her head. He lifts her lifeless body towards his mouth. His jaw dislocates, and he starts shoving her destroyed head first into his demonically widened mouth. His throat expands grotesquely and explodes, revealing her remains being forced down his throat. His effort fails when he reaches her waist. He falls to the floor, her legs hanging out of what's left of his mouth. I still haven't figured out why we were spared the puppeteering, but we have more immediate problems to deal with. 2 of the most well-endowed guys I've ever seen are suddenly hovering in front of us. They're jacking off, and it looks like things are about ready to pop. I scream, "Look out," and try to duck. Doesn't work. We both take a money shot in our respective faces, adding to the rest of the stuff we're covered with. I blink jizz out of my eyes and see that the poor guys are still jerking. Their hands move faster. The slaps of their hands against their bodies get louder. Finally, they yank so hard they tear off their dicks, which they stuff into each other's mouths. Their mouths start chewing and they slam to the floor. Their legs snap in compound fractures, and there's a huge blood spew from severed femoral arteries. They die as they swallow each other's members. Goth chick finally takes some initiative. She grabs my hand and pulls me towards the bar. We climb over the top and fall onto the body of the bartender. His chest and face are covered with shards of glass. The neck of a broken bottle encircles his dick. Another large bottle protrudes from his ass. She grabs 2 bottles of beer, takes a church key from the dead bartender's hands, opens them, hands one to me, and drains a full bottle. She reaches for another one. I grab her hand and stop her. We got to figure out what we can do here. Being drunk won't help. I take a conciliatory tone. "Tell me your name again." She drops the act. "Lissa, what's yours?" "Maura. I'm sorry about your friends." "Thank you."
Okay. I'm just going to say this. The day the feds come, I'm telling them where all of you motherfuckers are. I'm telling you right now. Rocky, as usual, disturbing, but delightful. I know you're going to be about a little bit. I know you're going to be in St. Louis on a day trip. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
So I will finally get to meet you.
Yep. StokerCon in May, KillerCon in August. I'm doing a regional library gig in September, and then Scares That Care St. Louis in October.
Awesome. So. Awesome. Exciting stuff. And you've got a new book coming out with Psychotoxin next month.
2 of them, you said. 2
of them. That's right. You're right. Smack Squatch is coming out. And then the other one, which I haven't announced yet because I'm waiting for the cover, but that's going to be very exciting as well. Sir, always a pleasure to see you. And we will talk in the very near future. Folks, we're going to a quick ad and we will be right back. All right, and we are back. Our final reader for the evening is someone who, when I read her work, I find myself either very intrigued or very disturbed, and I guess that's a good thing. Maria Lestrange, come to the stage, my friend, and share with us whatever you've got on tap for tonight.
I feel like that's an appropriate introduction. Thank you. I am going to read an excerpt from... drum roll, please. Smutton, releasing from Psychotoxin this week. So super exciting. Just to set the scene for you guys, we have, it's basically they're going after a half man, half ram who has been fucking everybody up. So here we go. A shiver ran down my spine as the shadows of the towering trees danced around us, their branches intertwining like the claws of a beast, anticipating its next victim. Like fucking Sterling. Stay close, I muttered. We need to stick together if we're going to have any chance of killing this sick fuck. Guys? Whitney held up the machete she was clearing our path with to signal for us to stop. Where's Landry? I closed my eyes and groaned. I wouldn't worry about him, Whit. The neighbor from the brown house said. His name escaped me at the moment, and I couldn't even muster up any guilt about it. He probably chickened out and ran back to that plump and pleasant little wife of his, fearing for his life or asking for his balls back or something. He chuckled. Far to the right, a twig snapped, followed by a menacing growl. We turned our flashlights and 1 or 2 spotlights that were definitely used for illegal lamping when the hunting season was shit, or so I've been told, to try and see what the fuck had done it. But there wasn't any doubt in anyone's minds. Sterling, you piece of shit. You might be a goat or some shit, but come on and face us like a man. For the first time in hours, the corners of my mouth almost twitched into a smile. That granny from the end of our road with her candlesticks and wild eyes was one crazy woman, yelling at the beast with no fear. I was starting to love her. You'll have to kill every last one of us before getting out of these woods, motherfucker. I joined her in the taunts. The words tasted nice on my tongue. Bleh. Fuck! He's behind us! Close in, turn around. Make a fucking circle, you guys. For the first time, I sensed a bit of fear coming from Whitney, which instantly rattled my own confidence. I mean, I was only standing due to the rageful adrenaline and the need for revenge, and I knew as soon as that feeling waned, so too would what little strength I had. We turned our backs toward each other, shining our lights all around to try and catch a glimpse of him, but none confirmed a sighting. We were caught in a twisted game of cat and mouse, and I'd be damned if I continued to be the prey. You can't run from us forever, Sterling. This is government land. They're probably watching us on their hidden cameras and shit, headed this way right now. What the fuck do you think they're going to do when they see you and your goddamn horns? Trey was right. Our community bordered on some top secret government bullshit, and more than once they'd appeared out of nowhere if any of us stepped into the woods. Where were they when we needed them now? Yeah, get ready for experiments, bitch. Might as well just let us give you an easy way out. If fear hadn't frozen every muscle in my body, I would have rolled my eyes at Whitney's last words. Ah! I whipped around at the scream behind me to find Trey splayed on his back in the center of our circle, a bleeding hoofprint imprinted on his crushed face. Fucking hell! Oh my god, Trey! Holy shit! I knelt beside him as faint wisps of air bubbled the blood pouring out of his mouth. I held back the bile rising in my throat, trying my damnedest not to puke on the man as he died. His nose was pushed back into what was now a fragmented skull, with both eyes bulging out on either side. Don't fucking run, you idiots! Whitney stood with her back to me and Trey, guarding and watching for another attack. 3, maybe 4 of our number had bolted into the trees. You fucking cowards! I screamed, not really sure I could blame them, but knowing full well that going off in these woods alone gave Sterling an opportunity to pick them off one by one. They were as good as dead now, which also meant that they'd be caught in the crossfire of what I was about to do to end all this shit. I grabbed Trey's semi-automatic like I knew what I was fucking doing, and even though I didn't, it couldn't be that hard. Point the shit and pull the trigger. Hope that Sterling was on the receiving end and he would die. In another worldly frenzy, I released the flood of rage, damned by the last of my conscience, and let that shit flow free. For Bert! I screamed, walking in a circle and sprayed bullets in all directions. May God have mercy on any creature other than fucking Sterling that got in the way, because I was going to fire and reload this gun until every last bullet in Trey's backpack was spent. And even then, once I found fucking Sterling on the ground, I would pepper him with more to make sure he resembled Swiss cheese before I quit. Sterling. Crazy heathen bitch. She'd mowed down 3 of her own in that violent show of ignorance. They lay in crumpled heaps in a varying scale of dead to dying. I looked down to see moonlight through my shadow. Stumbling, I realized she'd hit me too. The red net rigged semi-automatic to automatic boomstick had enough power to take down a fucking bear, but that was more than she needed, and by a lot. The bullets had passed through me, tearing away at my insides as they went. White hot pain seared, but without that iron allow remaining in my body, the wounds were already closing. She'd have been better off with her husband's shotgun, but she didn't know that. A flashlight swept over me and I growled, limping away. More blazing projectiles tore through me and I fell to the ground, gasping for breath. Cunt hit my fucking lungs. If there's one thing I can't stand, it's a punctured lung. My breath came in heaving, tremulous bursts. The whistling sound of a sucking lung wound came from several places in my chest. Rolling onto my back, I saw her approach. Beside her was the one she'd called Whitney, and a fucking grandma with candlesticks raised like nunchucks. Goddamn! She leveled the rifle's barrel even with my heart. You broke my trust, raped me, and killed the love of my life, you fucking dick. You're gonna regret this day you came home with us. She grinned wickedly. I'm going to enjoy every last fucking hurt you feel. Stand up and go back to whatever god you worship with your tail between your legs. Raising my head in a hitching, aching way, I stared into her round eyes with my goat-like ones. There was no fear in her. If the situation were different, it would be hot as fuck. Thinking of breaking her prideful will was almost enough to resurrect my erection, but my body didn't have enough blood. Slowly, I wobbled to my feet. There wasn't 10 yards between us. Whitney raised her own revolver, pointing it at my face. Do you have any idea how much it hurts to be shot? I snarled, finally able to regain my breath. She smirked. Nope, but it'll be the last thing you ever feel. I leapt, powerful legs closing the distance in a breath, but she was quick on the trigger. Whitney's hit first before I'd even landed. The bullet shattered my left horn, spinning my head for a second to glance off to the right. Her gun clicked, the last round spent. But the whore more than made up for that with a burst of 5 rounds that sliced through me, then 5 more. I hit the ground and she dropped the magazine to add another and sent 10 more through me into the ground. Needless to say, my mind blazed with agony and I slumped. She wasn't done, though. Fumbling through the backpack, she found another full clip before spilling the remaining contents while filling me with even more holes. I shuddered, then went limp. The women cheered and whooped, hugging on one another in celebration. The whore dropped her borrowed rifle to fully embrace the old lady, candlesticks and all. Whitney walked to my mutilated form and started bashing me with the revolver, cursing and ridiculing me for being what I was, poking fun at my faith. A person's faith is something with which one should not fuck. Suddenly, I hated her gloating mouth, pride, a deadly sin if I'd ever seen one, and I'd witnessed my fair share over the centuries of my endless crusade. As she brought the weapon down for the 6th time, I reached out and caught it, ripping it from her grasp, then grabbing her wrist. With supernatural agility, I twisted her around as a human shield between us. Again, without residual iron to slow the healing and boost my rage, I was quickly becoming whole. The soft tissue damage was already gone, and the few shattered ribs were only an inconvenience. This one wore a pleather miniskirt, the sluttiest of public appropriate garments. If you're done fucking around, little lady, I'm ready to get this rapture moving. To explain my intentions, I licked Whitney's face with a bifurcated tongue and as foul a sneer as I could muster. Stick around. There's plenty of lust left for the 3 of you. The whore scrambled for her rifle, but I threw Whitney into her and took it up myself. The weight of something so generally deadly was shockingly light. Whitney had managed to dangle herself from the wife, but I dragged her back by the ankle, holding her effortlessly in the air and waggling the rifle's long form in her face. In each epoch, there were knights, and while the swords take different forms, without their weapons, soldiers are mortal like anyone else. I'm going to fuck you with this rifle so far up your cunt that you'll taste the oil. Then, when I'm done, I'll pull the trigger. Her. Whitney fought against him with everything she had, but I knew it wouldn't be enough. The cold, hard ground beneath me reminded me of Bert, how he too was cold and probably hardening in rigor mortis right fucking now. This beast had defiled me, murdered my love, and now he was damn near close to doing worse to my dearest friend. Come on, bitch, I like it when you struggle for me, he growled, holding a thrashing Whitney out in front of him, dangling her by the ankles as he licked between her skirt with that disgusting forked tongue. Her cunt tastes like fear. In his other wool-covered hand, he shoved the shotgun up against her closed mouth. Wet it for me, bitch. I struggled to my feet again, locking eyes with my terrified friend as she tightly held her lips closed, shaking her head as tears streamed down her cheeks. Sterling popped the barrel against her mouth. Hard enough to knock out a few teeth, I realized in horror, as Whitney screamed, blood and teeth dribbling out of her mouth. Sterling shoved the barrel in her mouth back and forth, sliding far enough back that Whitney gagged. From the side, I noticed our granny neighbor and her candlesticks hiding behind a larger tree. Yes! He hadn't seen her! If I could distract him long enough, she could put the fucking animal down for good. Let her go, you fucking beast, I yelled, hoping, praying that even a moment's distraction could give the granny the opportunity that she needed. Your fight is with me, not her! Sterling threw his head back, roaring with a horrific laugh mixed with bleats that made my skin crawl. Pure evil seeped from this demon. You want me to let her go? He taunted. You gonna take her place, little lady? Sterling sneered at me as I watched Granny creeping up behind him, ever closer. I turned my eyes back to him, hoping he didn't notice my shifting eyes. Fuck, I probably messed up. Yes, take me, but do what you'd like, but let her go. He laughed again, opening his long fucking fingers to drop Whitney straight to the ground. Time slowed and everything stilled as she fell in slow motion. I watched in horror as 2 more teeth flew out of her mouth, her eyes growing wide as the top of her head made contact with the ground, cracking her neck to the side in one of the most sickening sounds I'd ever heard. Her body crumpled to the side before the echo of my go had silenced in the woods. My best friend's life had been snuffed out in an instant. In the next, Sterling raised a hoof and caught Granny and her candlesticks, now fully running at him to attack, square in her bitty chest, knocking her on her back to the ground. Granny stilled. Fuck! Fuck you! God damn it, I fucking hate you, you piece of shit! I ran towards him, all plans and concern and sense abandoned as I allowed my rage to fuel my movements once more. I'm gonna fucking kill you with my bare hands, I screamed, not knowing or caring how I was actually going to accomplish this. But God damn it, I was gonna try or die fighting. The end.
So tell me when I'm telling lies. Intriguing, disturbing. Marie, it is a pleasure, my dear. I know. I love your work. I had such a good time working on Smutting with you. It was so much fun. You and Bert wrote an amazing story. Saturday at 5 o'clock, folks, we're going to have a live launch party. The author is encouraging sexy animal costumes. So come in your best. We're going to have some delightful prizes. We're going to have a good time. We'll get Marie to read some more from the book. And, let's just celebrate. Let's have some fun. It's been a long week for everybody. And, that's what we like to do here. Marie, where can we find you online, my friend?
Oh, all over the place. I'm on all the social medias. The easiest place to find me is at my Linktree, which is Linktree Lestrange Books.
Awesome.
And then you can find, I have a podcast. I'm on YouTube, just all over the fucking place.
She's everywhere.
Everywhere.
She's everywhere. And I
lots
know
of
we'll
calls
see you.
this year.
I was going to say, I know I'll see you at least 2 shows this year. Me and you will be,
Yes,
be at the same
and
time. So
I feel bad for them that we're going to be in the same area. That's
it's
bad
going to
news
be
for
amazing.
everyone else.
We're going to have Smutting on the table for people to enjoy, and it's going to be a great time. We will see you in the very near future, and thank you for coming out. Folks, I want to thank everybody for joining us for our open mic night. I think it was an absolute delight. Boy, we said splatter and we got splatter. These folks are amazing talents, and I'm so excited to know and privileged to work with every single one of them. I will be back here tomorrow night for our usual Friday night roundtable live at 7:30. Still working on the topic, but you know how we do around here. So I'm going to go out here and leave you with this. This is coming out March 19th, video on demand. This is Room Zero.
Yeah?
My name is Dr. Galvin. Has anything strange been happening to you lately?
God, yes. Everything resets like it's Groundhog Day.
We were afraid something like that could happen.
How do you know all this stuff?
I built a device and I put a tracker in the box.
I'm so sorry. I'm just a mule.
Well, in any case, I can only help you in one condition.
Anything.
This may take a while.
It's all good. I have nothing else planned. Do you even know what we're stealing?
It doesn't matter, hon. All that matters is that you're getting a nice little paycheck for it.
I think it does matter. Lewis?
No, this is Frank. Are you at the motel?
Unfortunately, things have changed.
What do you mean?
I'm afraid I can't let you have the device.
Sooner or later, I will get you. I have an army.
And I have time.